My name's Steve Thompson, a 36-year-old working for an IT company. I'm working here, but technically I'm a contract employee. After serving as a systems engineer at a major IT company, I decided to start my own business, and I'm now training under a boss I greatly admire. The current CEO of the company, Morgan Smith, is 6 years younger than me at 30. She started her own business with her friends while she was still in college. Now she's built it into one of the most respected companies in the security software testing industry. CEO Morgan is also famous for her skills as a hacker. She's a well-known figure in the industry who has leveraged her talent for success. Her name is beginning to be known as a young entrepreneur. I chose the path of entrepreneurship because I admire her. Being able to work under someone I respect is truly a helpful experience. I sincerely admire CEO Morgan. One day, I was summoned to the CEO's office and received a strange request from her. "Will you live with me if I pay you?" Taken aback by this unexpected proposition, my mind went into a momentary freeze. CEO Morgan, watching my reaction, had a serious look in her eyes. It didn't seem like her usual jokes or pranks. I regained my composure and immediately responded. "Understood." From when? There was no way I could refuse a request from the admired CEO Morgan. I have no idea what her intention is, but if there's something I can do, I'll do it wholeheartedly. We had built that level of trust between us. I knew you'd answer immediately, Steve. With a satisfied smile, CEO Morgan slid the key card to her private apartment across the desk. "Just for a month. The address will be sent to your phone. Let me know if there's anything you need. The only concern, I guess, is my own self-control." What makes CEO Morgan famous in this industry isn't just her ability. Her beauty, comparable to that of a movie star, is also a contributing factor. Well, the problem, I suppose, is mine alone. With that thought, I started to feel a bit sorry for myself. I arrived at a tower apartment, guided by the address and map sent by CEO Morgan. It was a high-end apartment building with a full-time concierge service. I feel a little intimidated thinking I'll be living here for a month. Using the card key given to me, I headed for the designated room. An intimidating concierge, an older gentleman, lowered his head as he saw me. I guessed that CEO Morgan must have spoken to him beforehand. I nodded back, saying, "I appreciate your help." When I was about to enter the elevator at the end of the foyer, the concierge came forward and pointed to another heavy glass door further back, saying, "Over there." I couldn't access that floor without a car key. Beyond the glass door was an elevator exclusively for the higher floors. There was a security guard stationed there. The security seemed to be top-notch. When I held a card key to the sensor, I didn't have to specify the destination myself. The elevator door opened with a ding to a high-rise floor. From the number of doors, I could tell there were few rooms on this floor. The room designated by CEO Morgan was at the end of a long hallway. As I rang the bell, I heard a voice from inside saying, "I'm coming." The front door opened immediately. It seemed dangerous for a woman to live alone like this. When I raised my head to express some concern, the person standing there was not CEO Morgan. "You must be Mr. Steve Thompson. Morgan told me about you. Please, come in." She had a strange tan, but she was a girl with a well-formed face. She had come out to the entrance barefoot. "Who are you?" I was pulled into the entrance. I was a bit panicked because I thought CEO Morgan would be greeting me. "Didn't Morgan tell you? I'm her sister, Grace. Nice to meet you." She bowed slightly and smiled at me. She led me to a spacious living room and prepared some tea. She said CEO Morgan usually lives here alone. Grace laughed, saying that she was a freeloader just like me. Her profession was a photographer specializing in accompanying mountain climbers. She said she had just returned to Japan after a long time. "You've been overseas for a while. Did you come back to Japan for any special reason?" I casually asked a question, but I would soon regret my carelessness. Grace held out her left hand in front of my eyes. Even with bandages wrapped around, I could tell. Her left hand was missing the little and ring fingers. To my gasp of surprise, Grace shrugged and said, "Frostbite." It must have been a tough situation. I was called back by an hysterical Morgan. "I've been told to stay in Japan until I fully recover. I think you are probably my watchman." I correctly understood the true meaning of the request from CEO Morgan. And so, the strange cohabitation of the three of us began. Living together, I noticed that the personalities of these sisters were really opposite. CEO Morgan is always logical and cool, and her beauty makes her feel like a cool beauty. On the other hand, her sister, Grace, is a wild child, always acting on intuition. She has a face as beautiful as CEO Morgan, but she's not taking good enough care of it, like getting sunburnt. Moreover, she is a genius at destroying home appliances. It's so much that I think it's not just a talent. It's hard to believe she's the sister of CEO Morgan, who is at the top of the IT industry. "Steve, the water isn't coming out." "Why?" Today she was struggling in front of the water dispenser. "Grace, all you have to do is switch this. Then hot water comes out. It's cute when it's just this level." The other day, for whatever reason, she had water flowing backward and flooded the floor. My computer was also broken in the incident. CEO Morgan compensated me right away, but I remember my mind going blank for a moment. CEO Morgan often came home late, and naturally, Grace and I spent a lot of time alone. I taught Grace how to use the computer, and in return, Grace told me a lot of stories about the mountains. Looking at the photos Grace took, I started to look forward to hearing about her high-altitude climbing. Working in what's called the death zone. After realizing that it was a life-threatening job, I began to feel respect for Grace. Grace started to call me her computer teacher, and she was fond of me. "Grace, can I continue looking at yesterday's photos?" I call out to Grace, who is about to take a bath. Her photos were piled up in the living room. "Go ahead, you can look at anything." I heard Grace's lively reply from the dressing room. After hearing her reply, I reached out for the pile of photos. The vivid navy blue sky and the cliff cut sharply. The distant mountains are covered in white snow. The contrast of the navy blue and the white is dazzling to the eye. The people in the photos have chapped lips and sunburns, their eyes hidden by goggles, but everyone is smiling. Everyone might just smile naturally when Grace points the camera at them. I thought they are really warm and good photos, even as an amateur. Among them, I found a photo with Grace in it. Grace still looked young, almost like a student. It was probably the base camp for high-altitude climbing. She was embraced by a young man, making a peace sign towards the camera. Her left hand still had all 5 fingers perfectly intact. "This guy, doesn't he look like you?" At some point, CEO Morgan had returned home and was now peering at a photo over my shoulder. The scent of the perfume that CEO Morgan always wears filled the air, and I found myself stiffening with nervousness. "I thought he looked like you the first time I saw you. This man, he's Grace's fiancé. He's missing now." She traced the photo with her slim fingers, informing me in a soft voice. The man in the photo had gotten lost during a mountain climb. Nobody has been found yet. He was a solo alpine-style climber, she told me. It's a climbing style that involves quick ascension with light gear, not heavy. It expresses more towards climbing, making it a tougher challenge compared to traditional high-altitude mountaineering. And one winter, he went into the mountains and never came back. From the bathroom, I could hear Grace's humming. I had no idea she had such a sad history. I want you to keep Grace in America, where you can keep your eyes on her in order not to let her go to dangerous places. C.O. Morgan's voice was serious. Is it because I look like Grace's fiancé? Upon my query, C.O. Morgan nodded with a sorry expression. The reason C.O. Morgan chose me for this task was because my face resembled Grace's ex-fiancé. She probably thought I could keep Morgan here if I looked exactly like him. Listening to C.O. Morgan's reasoning, I felt a twinge of disappointment. Was it towards me, or towards C.O. Morgan? I just felt my energy draining away. I thought I had been chosen because I was admitted and trusted by C.O. Morgan. C.O. Morgan was looking at me, her face clouded with worry. I felt I needed to say something, but words eluded me. Please, if it's you, who looks just like her ex-fiancé, Grace might listen. I have no one else to ask. I can't bear the thought of spending another night worrying if Grace will return safely. C.O. Morgan revealed her feelings to me, who was still silent. It seems that both parents of the sisters had already passed away. Grace must be her only close relative. I was taken aback seeing the surprisingly childish side of the cool and elegant C.O. Morgan. What? He doesn't look anything like him. Don't kid yourself. The one who pulled C.O. Morgan's tearful shoulder from behind was Grace. Steam was rising off her as she just came out from the bath. But her face was more furious than I had ever seen. Grace, realizing that her plan had been heard, C.O. Morgan reverted to her usual composed demeanor. She swiftly brushed her long hair off her shoulder. I was thinking about you, Grace cut off C.O. Morgan's words. Don't manipulate my feelings to get your way all the time. Grace's anger was genuine. She stared at C.O. Morgan as if she was ready to throw a punch. Do you think you have the right to trample over my feelings, Steve's feelings, and everyone's goodwill? I'll say it because no one else will. You're arrogant. Who do you think you are? Unbelievable. C.O. Morgan was taken aback by being called arrogant. Indeed, not many people criticize C.O. Morgan. She probably knew that. She looked lost for words, as if she had been hit by a truth she hadn't considered. But I know that C.O. Morgan isn't that shallow. Her kindness is just hard for others to see and gets misunderstood. In this situation, she should have had an honest conversation with Grace instead of going roundabout. C.O. Morgan is just worried about Grace's well-being. It's as simple as that. Grace, please don't say it like that. I don't feel like my feelings were trampled on. I quietly spoke to Grace. When I was consulted about this, I felt I was trusted by C.O. Morgan. That's a fact. Sure, the confession earlier was a bit shocking, but my respect for C.O. Morgan hasn't changed. I convey that to Grace. C.O. Morgan looked at me with a surprised expression. C.O. Morgan is perfect at work, a person to be admired, but now I also got to know a new side of her, a caring elder sister. It's the best. Grace looked stunned at my words. C.O. Morgan shyly looked down. Morgan, is he your fanboy? He's not a dangerous guy, is he? Is everything okay? Grace, who was furious just a moment ago, now looked worried and asked C.O. Morgan. She even moved a little away from me, putting distance between me and C.O. Morgan. That hurts a bit. Hey, don't label me as dangerous. The sisters looked at each other at my response. And then they burst out laughing. Grace was even bending over, hitting the floor. C.O. Morgan also covered her mouth, trying to hold back her laughter. What? That's harsh, isn't it? In the end, the two sisters were laughing so hard, they fell over holding hands. It seems I helped them make up, but I felt a bit confused. From that day on, our cohabitation has been enjoyable. There were no secrets or grudges, and they treated me like a real family member. I savored what it felt like to be in a family after a long time. It even made me feel like going back to my parents' home. What was surprising was CO Morgan's swift change. She tried to keep me around using a romantic approach, but now she's telling me not to lay a hand on my sister. When she says that, I strangely start thinking about Grace. Not too long ago, I wouldn't have felt anything even if we were alone, but recently, I feel a bit embarrassed and it's troublesome. Tonight, CO Morgan is out on a business trip. I pulled up in my room after watching a movie in the living room with Grace. I think about an hour had passed. It seems that drinking beer was a mistake, as I had to crawl out of bed to go to the bathroom. The corridor was already dark, with the lights turned off. A light leaked out a little from Grace's room next door. It seemed that Grace was still awake. Listening carefully, I could hear an unfamiliar sound coming from Grace's room. Unable to suppress my curiosity, I peered in through the gap in the door to determine the source of the sound. As soon as I unwittingly raised my voice, I made eye contact with Grace, who was in the room. I thought it was dangerous, but it was too late. What I saw was Grace alone in the room, polishing an axe. Moreover, a faint smile was on her lips. Although I was waiting for her to scold me right away, there was no sign of the door opening. Unable to bear it, I confessed. "I'm sorry. I was just curious because I heard a strange noise." Through the door, I can sense Grace trying to suppress her laughter. The next moment, the door opened with a click, and Grace appeared, wielding the axe with goggles on. I unintentionally fell on my rear. Grace looked down on me, seemingly triumphant over my clumsy fall. Let's call it divine punishment. Raising his goggles to reveal her eyes, Grace flashed me a cheeky grin. I accept my divine punishment. I had no choice but to respond like that. But such fun days must also come to an end. Our cohabitation, which was initially agreed for a month, had continued for more than half a year. Lately, Grace has been going out and meeting various people. CO Morgan seemed very concerned about it. It's about time for me to head back over there. I'll be heading back soon, Grace said during a rare dinner together. I thought those words, which I had been dreading, had finally come out. CO Morgan, too, seemed to have the same thought as his chopsticks paused. Why does she have to go back to the mountains? Can't we just continue living together? CO Morgan put down her chopsticks and asked Grace. Grace just replied, I can't. When you go back, I'll be alone again. Do I have to spend my days praying for your safety again? Don't you understand how hard it is to endure the anxiety alone? Words that seemed to blame Grace. Yet it seemed to me that CO Morgan was hurt even as she spoke those words. Grace, you're more arrogant than me. CO Morgan spat out the words with a resigned coldness. I couldn't just stand by silently. CO Morgan, I'll always be by your side. Whoever you marry, that won't change. Please, let me carry half of your worries. I truly meant that. CO Morgan would eventually marry someone. But for that person to share the worry and concern she has for Grace would be challenging. Because it is impossible that person would know Grace deeper than I do. That's why I just want to share her worries by her side. If that could lighten CO Morgan's burden even a little. CO Morgan was looking at me with surprise. It was far from her usual cool and beautiful demeanor at work. Because you're here, Morgan, I always think I'll make it back alive. So please, wait here for me. Grace reached out and gently grabbed CO Morgan's hand. CO Morgan looked down and replied in a small voice, okay. That was enough. I was seeing the bond of the Smith sisters right before my eyes. And just like that, Grace left a few days later. Several years have passed since then. Oh, I've got an email from Grace. I'm still living in that apartment with soon-to-be my wife, Morgan. As I peered at the laptop in front of Morgan, I saw an email from Grace. It was a message saying that she wouldn't be able to attend our wedding ceremony. Apparently, the weather had been bad and the summit attack was significantly delayed. She wrote in the email that she still couldn't climb the high-altitude base camp and that it would be impossible to descend and return home. When I opened the attached file, a picture of Grace making a peace sign with a tan face against the backdrop of a snowy mountain and blue sky appeared. Grace really loves being in the mountains. I imagine that she must often be exposed to harsh nature, but Grace is always smiling in the pictures she sends. Indeed, my late father used to say that Grace has a talent for climbing. He preferred Grace over me. Morgan said, forcing a smile. It was the first time I'd heard such a story. Apparently, Morgan soon realized that she would only be a hindrance if she went climbing with them. I was left behind on every climbing trip. Each time, I desperately sought my own talent, and that's led to who I am now. It might have been a painful childhood memory. For a moment, Morgan gazed off into the distance. There was another talent sleeping within her. I can't help but be impressed by the strength of Morgan, who believed in that and kept searching. If you don't give up, things will work out, Morgan said, shrugging off her past with a casual laugh. I nodded strongly. I wanted to know about her unknown efforts more than anyone else. From the bottom of my heart, I think so. Once we're married, I'll tell her one wonderful thing about her every day. That will surely make our life even more wonderful. I won't lose to her and won't give up. The plan to start a business is also at a turning point. From now on, it's going to be the real deal. I guess this is what it means to set sail for a new life. We'll overcome anything together, no matter what. Looking at Morgan's face, I made that pledge in my heart,